Imagine walking into your local bank tomorrow morning to withdraw your savings. The doors are locked. A crowd is already gathered outside. Some people are shouting. Others are crying. A father pounds on the glass while checking his phone every few seconds. An elderly woman clutches a passbook that suddenly feels more like a piece of paper than a promise. Inside the building, the money is still there. At least, that's what everyone believes. But no one believes they'll be able to get it. And in that single moment, something extraordinary happens. Money begins to disappear, not because it's been stolen, but because people have stopped believing in it. It sounds impossible. After all, money feels solid, permanent, real. You can hold it in your hand, you can count it, you can spend it. But history has taught us a remarkable lesson. Money is not valuable because it exists. It's valuable because we collectively agree that it is. The moment that agreement begins to crack, even the strongest economy can begin to shake. This isn't just a story about banks or economics. It's a story about trust. Because trust may be the most valuable currency humanity has ever created. To understand why, we have to travel back to one of the darkest periods in American financial history. In October 1929, Wall Street collapsed. Within days, fortunes disappeared. Businesses failed. Families watched years of savings evaporate. But the stock market crash was only the beginning. The real disaster came afterward. As unemployment spread and fear replaced optimism, ordinary Americans began asking a terrifying question. What if my bank isn't safe? It seemed like a reasonable concern. Banks loan out much of the money deposited by customers. They don't keep every dollar sitting in a vault waiting to be withdrawn. That system works perfectly, until everyone wants their money at the same time. Then something unexpected happened. One worried customer became 10. 10 became hundreds. Hundreds became thousands. Lines formed outside banks across the country. People weren't responding to facts anymore. They were responding to each other. Psychologists call this social proof. When uncertainty is high, we look to other people for clues about how to behave. If everyone else is running toward the bank, maybe they know something we don't. Ironically, that belief creates the very disaster everyone fears. A perfectly healthy bank can fail if enough people believe it will. Think about that for a moment. Reality follows belief, not the other way around. This is where economics becomes psychology. Behavioral economists often describe financial systems as confidence games, not in the sense of fraud, but because confidence itself is what keeps the system functioning. Your paycheck only has value because your employer believes customers will pay for its products. The grocery store accepts your money because it believes suppliers will accept it. Suppliers believe their workers will trust it. The chain continues. Break enough links, and the entire system begins to wobble. By early 1933, panic had spread across America. Thousands of banks had already failed. Millions of Americans had lost their savings. Some banks had made poor decisions. Others were simply overwhelmed by fear. People rushed to withdraw money that banks couldn't immediately provide, even if those banks were fundamentally solvent. Fear became self-fulfilling. The surprising part is that human beings are wired for exactly this kind of reaction. Our brains evolved to detect danger long before they evolved to understand finance. Imagine two prehistoric humans standing near a river. One suddenly starts running. The other doesn't pause to ask for evidence, he runs too. If the first person was wrong, both wasted a little energy. If the first person was right, and a predator was nearby, hesitation could mean death. For thousands of generations, copying the crowd increased the odds of survival. Today, that same instinct influences investment bubbles, housing booms, cryptocurrency manias, and bank runs. Our environment has changed much faster than our psychology. However, there was another force quietly making everything worse. Psychologists call it loss aversion. Research by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky showed that people experience the pain of losing money far more intensely than the pleasure of gaining the same amount. Losing $1,000 hurts much more than finding $1,000 feels good. When rumors of bank failures spread, people weren't calculating probabilities. They were imagining unbearable losses. Emotion overwhelmed logic. Then something remarkable happened. On March 6, 1933, newly inaugurated President Franklin D. Roosevelt declared a nationwide bank holiday. For several days, banks across America closed. At first glance, the decision seemed absurd. How could closing banks possibly restore confidence? But Roosevelt understood something many economists at the time underestimated. People don't just need money. They need reassurance. 4 days later, Roosevelt addressed the nation in one of his famous fireside chats. He didn't lecture Americans about monetary policy. He spoke calmly, clearly. He explained how banks worked in language ordinary families could understand. He acknowledged people's fears instead of dismissing them. Most importantly, he asked Americans to trust the system again. Something extraordinary followed. When banks reopened, many Americans redeposited the cash they had hidden under mattresses. Confidence slowly returned. The economy didn't recover overnight, but belief had begun to recover. That may have been the most important turning point. Not because new money had appeared, but because trust had. This pattern repeats throughout history. In Germany during the early 1920s, hyperinflation made money nearly worthless because people lost faith that it would hold value. In Zimbabwe decades later, prices changed so rapidly that people rushed to spend cash before it became less valuable by evening. In both cases, the paper itself hadn't changed, the collective belief behind it had. Even today, most money isn't paper at all. It's digital, numbers stored inside computers. When your salary arrives, almost nothing physical changes, a database updates. Yet you accept those numbers as real because millions of other people do too. Money has always been, in many ways, a shared story. Perhaps the greatest invention in human history wasn't the dollar, it was our ability to cooperate with complete strangers through shared belief. Yuval Noah Harari argues that large civilizations depend on common fictions, stories enough people agree to believe. Corporations, governments, laws, currencies. None exist in nature. They exist because billions of people behave as though they do. That doesn't make them fake, it makes them social realities. And social realities can become incredibly powerful. But here's what nobody tells you. The same psychology that protects financial systems can also threaten them. When optimism becomes excessive, bubbles form. When fear spreads unchecked, crashes follow. Markets don't simply measure economic value, they measure human emotion. Every trading day is a reflection of hope battling fear, greed competing with caution, confidence wrestling with uncertainty. The numbers on the screen tell one story, human psychology tells another. Perhaps that's why legendary investor Warren Buffett has often said that successful investing depends more on temperament than intelligence. Because understanding markets begins with understanding ourselves. The day America learned money isn't real wasn't the day dollars disappeared. It was the day millions of people discovered that the true foundation of every currency isn't paper, gold, or even digital code. It's belief. Every paycheck, every investment, every bank account, and every economy rests on an invisible agreement between strangers who will never meet. We spend our lives chasing money as though it's the most tangible thing in the world. Yet the greatest financial crises in history remind us of an uncomfortable truth. Money was never the foundation. Trust was. And perhaps the most valuable asset you'll ever own isn't measured in dollars at all. It's the confidence that, tomorrow morning, everyone else will still believe the same story you do.